Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, January 7th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the congressional certification and the Mike Pence acknowledgement of Joe Biden's presidential election victory. So this January 6th date is a date that has been mentioned by members of the right wing for quite some time now. Why do they mention it? Well, it was supposed to be the day where the congressional certification actually went underway in the United States Senate and the United States House, and they were able to contest certain states. Those states being, most notably, Pennsylvania and Arizona, but they also originally were going to contest not only with just those two states, but also the states of Georgia, Wisconsin, and Nevada. But looking at what unfolded yesterday, there were numerous senators and representatives who changed their minds as to how they were going to vote on the certification results. And even if they had voted the way they initially intended, Joe Biden would have still won the presidential election. This was the last line of defense for President Trump and his allies. I made a video outlining why Mike Pence really had no power, but the Trump wing of the Republican Party was so caught up in the idea, reading directly into the Constitution when there is a lot of room for interpretation. All it says is that the vice president will open the certification. That literally means he's handed the envelope and pulls it out. He had no power whatsoever. There was nothing. The last time he could have ever considered having power was in 1876 in that presidential election. So since then, following the 1877 Electoral Count Act, the vice president was completely stripped of all power whatsoever. And if you're looking at what happened yesterday, yes, some Republicans did go forth and try to contest the results in Pennsylvania and Arizona, but both of which were shot down completely. Republicans in the House voted to uphold the objection. I think, relatively 120 to 80. It was not a good vote for the Republican Party. That the majority of Republicans wanted to uphold the objection. The majority, overwhelming majority, I think maybe 6, 7, 8 senators in the Senate, obviously, voted to uphold the objection. So there was a much bigger pro-Trump wing of Republicans in the United States House of Representatives than in the United States Senate. That could be due to the fact that, some of these representatives have just been primaried and now are in the United States House of Representatives. So looking at yesterday, so many things happened. The most major headline of yesterday was not that the Democratic Party won back control of the United States House of Representatives. It was not that Joe Biden was going to be declared the official winner of the presidential election by Vice President Mike Pence. It was actually about a vicious mob in the Capitol building that broke through for the first time in 206 years. And it could not have looked worse for the American people. And looking at what unfolded yesterday, I remember watching it live, texting my friends about it, talking to my parents about it, talking to my family members about it. It was truly a horrifying event. I live right outside the nation's capital. These are not people from D.C. These are not people from D.C. that are attending these protests, if you'll call that, riots, to be very literal. These are not people from D.C. These are people coming from West Virginia, Pennsylvania, Virginia, west part of Maryland, right? You're looking at people that don't necessarily represent DC ideology, the American ideology, that are coming to the Capitol building and are breaking in. So many people are going to be arrested in the next month. And for what? To arrive at the same conclusion that we all knew 4 days after the election, that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. You see, when Mike Pence certified Joe Biden as the winner, Vermont was the state that put Joe Biden over the top. Coincidentally, it was Joe Biden's, I believe, largest margin of victory in the entire country and one of the largest swings that we saw in a singular state from 2016. Looking at Mike Pence, I remember I stayed up last night. I stayed up till around 3 a.m. I recorded this on my phone. I screen recorded the CNN Go live stream of Mike Pence looking at this, and Don Lemon interjected. Wolf Blitzer was there. And overall, that was the defining moment when Vermont put Joe Biden over 270 electoral votes, because that was when Mike Pence officially acknowledged that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. You see, Mike Pence has been someone who has tried to pretty much avoid talking about this, largely because he does want to have a political future. Almost everyone in the White House plans on running for president, Senate, House of Representatives at some point in their life. So Mike Pence definitely has future political aspirations. I mean, he's a one-term vice president. You're probably not going to want to finish off as a one-term vice president. But looking at what he did last night, he probably angered a very significant portion of the Trump base because they were told misinformation. President Trump and his allies tried to tell the American people that Mike Pence had the power to overturn the election results. They told them that Mike Pence could take the results in Pennsylvania and not accept the electors. That was never true, and that will never be true in America. The only situation, and I outlined this, the only situation in which any type of elector is thrown out is if the Democratic-controlled House and the Republican Senate agree to throw out a state. First of all, 45 Republican senators said, no, we're not throwing out the state results. We're not denying millions of people from their right to vote. The Democratic-controlled House didn't even consider it. Not a single Democrat voted to uphold the objections to the United States presidential election results in any states. There was an accidental vote, but it was changed by the time that everything was recorded. So what happens if there was a tie? Well, it wouldn't be the vice president who broke it. It would actually be the governor's certification. And all of these blue states on your map, regardless if they have a Republican or Democratic governor, they have all certified a Joe Biden victory. So there was no scenario in which the Republican Party could overturn the election results, and there was no scenario in which Donald Trump was going to end up victorious. So why all of the pain and all of the suffering? Why send people into the Capitol building? Trial by combat. How else are you supposed to interpret that after 60 failed court cases? After multiple governors opposing President Trump, Republicans at that. After state legislatures denying your requests. After the Supreme Court of the United States, which is composed of 1/3 Trump nominees, shooting it down 9-0. Nothing works. Nothing works. And somehow they were able to convince a very large portion of the American electorate that this was going to be the day, January 6th, and when it became very evident that this was not going to actually happen, the Republican Party, pretty much, not the entire Republican Party, but definitely President Trump and his allies encouraged the behavior, the abnormal behavior that we witnessed yesterday at the Capitol building. When you go out in a rally and you say these are people that stole the election and you need to apply pressure to your Republican colleagues, you need to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue, you need to have trial by combat, how else are people supposed to take that? If nothing is working for them, they're probably going to riot. If they truly believe the election was rigged and they know that their congressman is on the other side of that door certifying a result that they believe was rigged, they're going to break down that door. They're going to get in there with any means necessary. And that was a very scary thing that happened in the district yesterday, all of yesterday. Enough so that the mayor of D.C. had to impose a curfew, that there were so many things that had to be done in order to Virginia police. Andrew Cuomo sent down, the New York, the New York, I don't know why I'm lacking it, National Guard, down to the District of Columbia, 1,000 of those members. I mean, that's insane. The fact that we even reached that point where other states had to interject because the D.C. National Guard deployed much later than expected, but there was just so many people that it couldn't be handled. CNN estimated 30,000 to maybe 100,000 people in attendance in front of the Capitol building. The final MAGA march to stop the steal. Whose rhetoric was that? Who coined the term stop the steal? Trump lawyers. Who encouraged this? President Trump. He held a rally the morning of. And when everything was happening, when there were literal congressmen and there were, senators, I say congressmen referring to the House of Representatives, but yes, I know that it branches over both, were cowering in bunkers, were cowering under their seats wearing gas masks because they were afraid when 4 people are dead to arrive at the same result we knew 4 days after the election. And last night's certification changed nothing. Mike Pence did everything that he was supposed to. Not to say that that's something that should be, anything but expected, but he upheld his constitutional duty. He upheld Joe Biden's victory, which was fairly won. And looking at everything that happened, where are we? Are we any different than where we were in terms of the electoral count? Did a single state's electors change? you have to ask, what was this for? Why did Donald Trump do this? Well, part of the reason might be the money. To be completely honest, it makes sense that this was drawn out as long as it was, because the Republican Party was fundraising $200 million off of this alone to stop the steal. $200 million after an election has already been done, certified, recounted, audited, whatever it might be. Done. And when you're looking at what happened last night, it only solidified that. There was nothing ever indicating that Joe Biden was going to lose the election. Nothing. No, there should have really been no doubt about it. The media played into the doubt because it got ratings. When you went on to CNN, you went on to Fox News, went on to MSNBC, they were covering it because it got ratings and because if it's in discussion, it's fair game for the mainstream media. I discussed it because this was something that needed to be addressed. And every single video I made about it, I always pointed out there was no route that this could actually happen. There was nothing that could ever happen. My most recent video about it is literally titled, "No, Mike Pence Can't Overturn the Election Results." There's always this discussion about it, but no one ever researches too deeply into the constitutional law. You go into the acts that have been passed since then that have made slight adjustments to what actually happens in terms of the electoral counting, in terms of contesting a state's electors. And President Trump's legal team obviously glossed over that. They obviously glossed over that because they argued to this day, President Trump saying, "See you on January 6th for his final rally," thinking that Mike Pence was going to somehow overturn the election results. And it wasn't just that there was this huge thing that happened at the Capitol yesterday. The Capitol building raid probably is one of the biggest events in my entire lifetime that I've experienced so far. Probably the biggest in terms of a one-day event. I'm not talking about a long-lasting pandemic or a war. I think that this was the most eventful day for America that I've experienced personally in my lifetime. But looking at what happened, there is no reason, that this should have been the rhetoric that the Trump team was pushing. Because as a result of their, "We've won the election, it was stolen from us," all of that stuff, they lost 2 Senate seats in Georgia, which handed the Senate over to the Democratic Party. Had Donald Trump not followed through with the argument that the election was rigged, the Republican Party would have 52 seats in the United States Senate. They would have 52 seats. I have no doubt in my mind that would be the truth. I have no doubt in my mind the Republican Party would be the absolute outright majority and block everything that Biden wanted to do. But play stupid games, win stupid prizes. And that prize was losing the Senate majority. President Trump is the first president since the 1930s to lose the Senate, the House, and of course, the presidency. The first president to leave with an opposition party trifecta coming in. That's crazy to think about. What unfolded yesterday hurt the Republican Party to come. If they thought Georgia was bad, this is going to play in a bunch of ads for the Democratic Party through the midterm elections. Because this is the party that is going to be responsible for everything that President Trump does. If President Trump is prosecuted after he leaves office, that's going to hurt the Republican Party because he was a Republican president. Only one political party comes out of this unscathed, relatively unscathed, and that's the Democratic Party. Because what happened yesterday, horrible look for the Republican Party. Because the Republican Party had been arguing on multiple occasions that, this party doesn't riot when they lose elections. This party doesn't go to Washington, D.C. and fight with police. The rhetoric that the Republican Party used against the Democratic Party to try to win over, back over, suburbanites, is not going to work because of what happened yesterday. Think about how easily it would look when you see Josh Hawley waving to protesters, encouraging them on. And then you see Josh Hawley cowering with a gas mask on in a tunnel in the Senate. Think about that. All in a 12-hour time period from 8 to 8. When you're looking at what unfolded yesterday, it completely removed any type of legitimacy that the Republican Party tried to have in terms of being the quote-unquote moral high ground. The Republican Party has always been the party of family values, the party of traditionalism, the party of law and order. That can't hold up after yesterday's results. On top of that, this certification only tells us exactly what we've known for the past 2 months, that Joe Biden won the election. In fact, today marks exactly 2 months since we found out that Joe Biden won the election, since Pennsylvania put him over the top. looking at the election results, actually Wisconsin put him over the top, but Pennsylvania was called after. Wisconsin was the tipping point state. But looking at the electoral map, we've seen this so many times, yet for some reason, only now has it come to terms with the President Trump administration. Has the Republican Party come to terms with this being the actual map? And not to say the entire Republican Party, but President Trump is a very big name. I would say he's the face of the Republican Party at this moment. So I will say the Republican Party in that aspect. President Trump. Now this is final. Mike Pence said it himself. Joe Biden won the election. There are no even fantasy-type pathways for President Trump from this point. This simply is done. And I've been saying it's been done for 2 months. But there's always, a Republican surrogate on Fox News trying to say, no, it's not done. Just wait. Just wait. Until when? Because clearly, this rhetoric that the election was stolen, that it was fraudulent, that the opposition party is plain evil, as President Trump said yesterday in his video, trying to quell the rioters, saying, we know the other side is evil, but go home. What does that tell them? You're saying, go home. But these people stole an election. This is the most rigged election in the United States history. What does that tell them? It just tells them to continue doing it. Because yes, your subtle, go home, won't make up for the fact that 75% of the video comprises of you saying the election was rigged. So it's only going to reiterate what they already believe. It's only going to reaffirm in their minds that the election was rigged. They're probably not going to listen to the go home part. They're going to listen to the election was rigged part and continue in the Capitol building and then continue in other cities around the country. So last night's certification was a big win for Joe Biden just because it finally has ended all rumors that Joe Biden will not be the next president of the United States. It also outlined what everyone knew, or at least most people knew, that Mike Pence had no power whatsoever. So last night, Mike Pence put Joe Biden over the top with the state of Vermont's 3 electoral votes, putting him at 271 electoral votes. Minutes followed, and the final results ended up 306 to 232. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my post-2020 election videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.